All right, Mr. Willis. I'm going to give you a quick little video about how to do this lab and specifically how to make sure that it stays safe. So before you leave my classroom, grab the goggles. I'll leave these on the demo table. Put them on when you go into the class, the laboratory. And over here is the goggle cabinet. Open this up, tell students to put goggles on and come on in. They know all the basic rules, so they should be doing this already. And then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be here at the fume hood. Make sure the fume hood's on right now. It's not, so you actually need to go to the other side, turn it on, and you should hear the the noise of the fan going as it's running. You'll notice that this container has already been filled up with the zinc and the sodium hydroxide. The liquid, it looks like water, but it's actually sodium hydroxide. There's more in this container on the side. There's also more zinc on the side as well. As the lab continues throughout the day, you might need to add more water, and I put some deionized water right here. You can just add it right in as the day goes on. All right, so here's how it's going to kind of work. You're going to just direct students to give you the pennies as they come in, and you're going to drop them into certain spots within the within this glass container. The moment you do come in, I highly recommend turning this on. Maybe bring it up to, I don't know, say 200 degrees, just to get it warmed up really quickly. Once it's warmed up, you can turn it down a little bit. If you notice any fuming or anything like that, any boiling, it gets that hot, then definitely turn it down a little bit. But 200 degrees, doesn't really mean it's going to get to that temperature. It just means that, well, I've never noticed it actually get, to that actual temperature inside the bath. I think it's just the temperature of the plate itself. So typically it's going to be somewhat below that. So anyway, throw it on something like 150, 200 degrees, get it to start warming up really quick. Once you start to see it fume a little bit, that's when you can turn it down. All right, so students are going to be giving you your pennies. You're going to be putting them inside the glass container, and generally it's going to take a few minutes for these to start. So let me just kind of show you the general process. This sodium hydroxide has already been warmed up, so this might go pretty fast, but it shouldn't be very long. Once you get all the students' pennies in here, you're going to just kind of manage them, and it certainly doesn't hurt to flip them periodically. Just be very cautious, avoid splashing, avoid your hands getting directly above, particularly if it's fuming. And also make sure that the fume hood itself is going to be low somewhat. You want your face to be well above where the hood's window is actually. So don't bring it up all the way is what I'm saying. Bring it down a little bit as it's going. So anyway, we're watching this penny in there change color. We want to keep it in there so that both sides have a silvery appearance. And so you'll be monitoring them. You might be flipping them occasionally. This helps agitate the solution to encourage the zinc to add to the pennies. Okay, we'll let this go. Now some students will have pennies that are not really that clean. So what I've set up over here is a station where they can clean them. Now as far as what they can do to clean the pennies, there's a couple techniques they can use. One, they can use an eraser to try to remove some of the dirt and grime that the pennies have. I don't have two hands available, so it's hard to do, but an eraser actually works pretty well at cleaning a penny up. Another thing students can do to help clean their pennies and remove corrosion is to simply dip it into this solution. This is a solution of vinegar and some water. And so if you just put the penny in there, swish it around for like, 30 seconds or so. Might not even be that necessarily long. Yeah, it's already cleaned up quite a bit. Students can do that. They can wipe it down with some, wash it off with water, clean it down, dry with a paper towel. And then that can be some good prep work they can do before they put the pennies into the sodium hydroxide bath. All right. So yeah, that looks quite a bit nicer just from being soaked in the vinegar for just about 10 or 15 seconds. Let's check on the water bath now, or I'm sorry, the sodium hydroxide bath. I'm just going to put this penny in as well. Might as well do it. So you can, I'll leave these pennies right here on the table so you can see relatively like what is a good penny supposed to look like. Here's one actually that's been sitting in for a while. So you can see clearly that a silvery color, a zinc coating, has covered the surface fairly uniformly. It's not as good as it could be. So I'm guessing that this solution hasn't gotten super hot yet. I'm just going to crank it up a little higher to about 260. The one that I put in just at the beginning of this video is starting to turn a bit silver, just a little bit. You can sort of see that happening. And yeah, so the first 10 minutes of class, 10 minutes of the lab might just be waiting for these pennies to go. And I definitely recommend having students clean the pennies because that can make it go faster. I also recommend just cranking that temperature up really high because that seems to just help get the pennies started. Okay. I'm just going to do a few more while we wait for that to heat up. Now let's just start talking about when the pennies are going to be ready to be given to students. What you should tell students is to grab a beaker and fill it with water. In fact, this would probably be better to do at the beginning of class, especially when it comes to using the vinegar. Students don't want to be touching the vinegar solution. It's going to be pretty irritating to the hands if they get it on them and don't wash it off. So anyway, fill a beaker up with water. Every student should have this ready to go at the beginning of the class. And this will help aid in washing the vinegar off the pennies if they're cleaning them, if they're choosing to clean them. This will also aid in the quenching of the pennies later, which we'll do next. There we go. Okay, getting those dried. Let's put those back into the sodium hydroxide bath. Yeah, they're starting to come along, aren't they? Okay. Now, when students are ready to collect their pennies, it's going to be pretty tough figuring out who's got what. So just try your best. If the students remembered where you put the pennies, or if they remembered what dates they were, you can try your best to hand them back. But you might find that it's just too difficult. It's too challenging to keep track of the 40 or 50 pennies that might be in there. So do the best you can. The best way to hand students back their pennies is just tell them to form a line when they're ready. Have each pair of students who's getting their pennies hold a cup or a beaker of water. And what you're going to do basically is, instead of just handing them their penny on a towel or giving it to their hand, which would be bad, it would corrode or damage or injure their skin, it's going to be best just drop the penny once it's ready directly into their tap water that they have. So how are these coming along? They're starting to get there. They really are. Sometimes going like this can help, just kind of begin agitating the solution. Should go faster once this actually gets heated up. Right now it's just didn't do a good job getting this up to a good temperature before I started my video here. Yeah, it's starting to turn. Okay. So we're just gonna grab one and show you what it looks like, okay? So you're gonna, again, drop the pennies into the students' beakers of water. They're gonna take the pennies to a Bunsen burner that they set up on their own. One of the pennies, after they dry them off, they're gonna keep, and that's gonna be what we'll just call the silver penny. That's the one that they're gonna keep as silver. The second penny that they should have is going to be the one that they turn gold. And how the process works is a student is going to turn on a Bunsen burner. Students are aware of how to use these. And what needs to be done is a high temperature flame needs to be created. So flame's got to have two cones, an inside blue cone and an outside sort of a violet cone. What students going to do is they're going to take their penny and they're going to put it in the hottest part of the flame. That's the light blue cone. So they're going to put it right there in the tip. And they're going to watch and they're going to examine and look for a transition from a silvery color to a gold color. That's when it turns brass. Soon as you see that, the student is going to place that into the tap water. And as you can see, we get a transformation that's now permanent. The penny has turned golden color. What has occurred essentially is the penny, which is copper, started out with just copper atoms on the outside. Copper is kind of an orangey red color. When it was placed in the sodium hydroxide bath, the sodium hydroxide encouraged the zinc atoms, which are in the zinc metal, also in the bath, to bond to the surface of the clean penny. And over time, a very thin layer of zinc atoms begin to coat that outside of the penny. That's the silvery color that we see here. So that's why the copper pennies turned zinc. They turn the color of that kind of metallic gray. Now they stay gray or silver colored because the atoms in a solid are somewhat fixed. They are not able to freely move about. However, if we heat the penny up, what's going to happen is that the atoms are going to get more energy. They're going to vibrate a little bit, and some of the atoms of zinc are going to transition into the penny, and some of the copper atoms that got covered by the zinc are going to transition back out. And so we're going to get a blend called an alloy, and this alloy is called brass. It's a mixture of zinc and copper, and it has a beautiful golden color. So I'm just going to show that one more time. This penny isn't really that great. It's got parts that are not quite silvered yet, but it will do. It will show the transition. I'm just going to get nice and close without melting my phone. Okay, here we go. So again, students put them in. They watch really carefully for that transition to a golden color. Then they quench it. And look at that. You get a nice, beautiful brass or golden color. All right. This is currently at 260 degrees. And I still don't really see a lot of bubbles or action. So I might even suggest that you bring this up to 260 at the beginning. Once you do start seeing some steam though, that's when you might want to slow it down because it's going to start going past the boiling point at this. So at whatever point where you're getting them to turn silver, you know, we're starting to see the transition happen now finally for some of these. Yeah, it's got some spots that aren't quite clean perfectly. You know, there could be oil on that part of the penny. That's a good one, actually. That's fairly good. Fairly uniformly silvered. That's a really good one, actually, too. But once you get that done, once they really start turning zinc colored quickly, that's when you know you can basically turn the temperature down. Okay? All right. So let's assume now that all the students have gotten their zinc pennies, they're turning them gold, they are washing them, they're getting ready to clean up. Make sure you tell students to put the beakers back where they got them, have them wash them out in the sink. It's okay for them to be washed and put the water put down the drain. Personally, for you, what you'll do is you'll turn this down to low. You can refill this with any extra water that's needed. because some of the water is going to evaporate over time. If you feel it's not working well, you can add a little more sodium hydroxide. You can add a little more zinc potentially, but you'll want to turn it down to low. At the end of the day, turn it off, and you're welcome to put the plastic wrapping back on. I don't really care if it evaporates away though. Honestly, I can just add water later. Make sure before the students start to leave the classroom that all the Bunsen burners are being put away. To do that, they must be shut completely off. The knob is 90 degrees to the tube, where the tube goes on. And what I generally do is I go around and I just do a quick check. Are all the knobs at all the places turned off? We don't want them to be left on and pumping gas in the room. Tell students to wash their hands. They should be aware of this though. And yeah, that's the general idea. If you do get any spills of sodium hydroxide on you, wash your hands off immediately with water. That's going to get the highly basic solution off you, so it's not going to cause too much of a problem. Please do not put your face into the fume hood, because the fumes are extremely corrosive, as I mentioned, and they're not going to be good to breathe in. So definitely make sure that you have that fan running. I didn't have it running, and I probably should have. So yeah, I just really wanted to stress that. Make sure you get the fan on. And then as students leave the room and go back to my classroom, just make sure that you lock this and turn the UV light on for at least 10 minutes so that it's ready for the next class. All right, I apologize. This is probably a rambling video and could have been shortened a lot, but I'm in a rush to get out of here, and I wanted to make sure I covered everything. So good luck with everything. I think things are going to go well for the most part. Really, I just hope students get some pennies that are going to be silver colored and that are going to be brass colored. So if that can happen, I think the rest of the lab, which we'll do for homework over break, should be a piece of cake. All right, thanks, Mr. Willis.